Hey guys, Dadtires, and today I have for you the Gnorp Apologue. I picked up the Gnorp Apologue for $6.99 on Steam, and that is its regular price. It actually just came out just over a month ago now, December 14th of 2023, and here I am mid-January giving it my thoughts. The Gnorp Apologue is currently sitting overwhelmingly positive at 97% on Steam, which is a pretty big deal. That doesn't happen too terribly often. So let's get to it. The Gnorp Apologue is more of an idle game than anything else. So it plays, I say plays loosely, pretty much by itself. It's probably the one game I reviewed thus far that it's actually beneficial to not pause it and just walk away, because your little Gnorps are going to keep attacking that rock, and that is your Gnorp's sole purpose in life, is to beat the living shit out of that rock, get the little pixels to fly out, and then there's other Gnorps that are going to take those and bring them to the stash. With those shards come your decision. So you either need to decide if you want to build more housing, which will allow you to have more Gnorps, and it gets more expensive every time you build a new house, or you can spend those shards to hire more Gnorps that are going to cause damage to the rock that's going to make more shards. But you have to kind of have that balance where you can cause a crap load of damage to the stone, but if you don't have the Gnorps to pick up the shards, then it's not really worth it. So do you actually look at buying a different building that's going to give you access to different kinds of Gnorps, that's going to do different kinds of damage, it's going to synergize with other things. So it's really just a matter of whatever it is you want to do with your Gnorps, and there is no wrong answer, especially because at some point you can prestige. Take all of your prestige points, put them into skill points, and start another run. In the early game, you actually have to manually click on the rock, and that's going to pump out the shards that your runners will get, and that kind of gets the whole ball rolling. And after a little while, it really makes more sense to just kind of let it run and come back to it later. So that's where it comes in as an idle game. It doesn't really take a very long time to get to that point, probably I'd say 20 minutes to an hour, depending on how much you want to read and how careful you are about your decisions and how much you really care about your decisions. If you're just flying through and clicking on whatever, then you'll get to a point where you can walk away pretty quickly, and then it just becomes kind of a virtual ant farm. You do get a bonus if you're sitting at your PC and you're clicking on the rock. You can get up to a 2 times bonus for damage that your Gnorps do to the rock if you're also clicking it. And when you walk away, that meter slowly starts to go down. So essentially, if you had something that was running all the time, it would pretty much always be at the 1 times multiplier. But if you felt like walking over to it and clicking on that rock a bunch of times, you can get up to 2 times the multiplier. So that's at some point most of your involvement, but there is some other things to do, and that's where the odd satisfaction comes in. It's kind of tough to explain. It's not an exhilarating game. It's not a game that you're going to brag to your friends about how well you did in. It's just kind of something that's there and something you can watch. And I think it's the little minute details that really set it apart. So you can watch each individual Gnorp actually go through their life cycle and do their job and loop that process and go through again. So there is some satisfaction to it. There's also a ton of funny commentary if you read and really dive into the descriptions on some of the buildings and some of the jobs that they can get. It's pretty clever. There's a lot of funny things in there. It also has, which is what you're watching right now, a screensaver mode. So if you push S, and there's actually an adjustable timer as well, and it just kind of turns into this idle view of your Gnorps that it just cuts from one job to the next and then keeps following them for a few seconds. And it's just kind of a relaxing thing to look at. Relaxing enough to the point where I actually devised, I'm going to say clever. Most things I do aren't that clever, but this I thought was pretty clever. But I devised a way where when my system goes idle, it will actually launch Gnorps, and it's going to launch it in full screen as long as you left it in full screen. And after 1 minute, it will automatically go into screensaver mode. So I kind of set it as like a pseudo screensaver in kind of a way. And the game uses next to no system resources whatsoever, so it's really fine to, even if you make it a startup program and have the thing run as soon as you turn your computer on and just run in the background, I mean, that's kind of cool in that sense, but you might not always be looking at it. So I think what I'm going to actually do next is I might make a virtual machine, or I might just use an old laptop that I've got laying around and install the game on it and have it launch and just have it running 24/7 as kind of like a virtual ant farm that I can just take a peek at from time to time, purchase some upgrades, walk away. And it's always kind of cool to come back to it and see what balance changes your small, minute clicks have done for your colony of Gnorps. It brings me back with this idea. It brings me back to a friend of mine who actually had a framed laptop that folds in half entirely. I believe it was a Lenovo Yoga laptop. Don't quote me on that one, but it was something similar to that. And he had it folded in half entirely, and then he had it inside a frame. And it was running Dwarf Fortress, and he had a fully self-sustaining colony of dwarves, and it was art on his wall. And I just thought that was so cool, but I've never been nearly as good as he was at Dwarf Fortress, so I've never been able to get to that point. So I think that if I was the developer, which is Myco, I believe that's how it's pronounced. It's M-Y-C-O, Myco. If I was Myco, I would add support for Linux operating systems so that it doesn't have to be run on top of Windows, because this game is begging to be left on all the time on a really lightweight OS or a lightweight device like a Raspberry Pi, or if someone has a thin client that's sitting around somewhere, or some old junky laptop from 5 years ago, anything like that. Just to be able to set this game up as a work of art. And I mean, you know, we're probably unique in that sense. I think there's going to be some people who come over to your house and would kind of give you a weird look as to why you have weird pixel robots beating up a rock, making colored pixels fly up all over the place. I don't know. I think it's really neat. I'm going to set this up as a work of art somehow, one way or another. If anybody wants what I did to set up Gnorps as kind of a pseudo screensaver, just let me know. I'd be more than happy to make a video on how I did that. And Myco, if for whatever reason you happen to stumble across this video, please give us the ability to automatically launch the game in screensaver mode. That'd be fantastic. That way you don't have to wait the required 1 minute before it automatically goes into screensaver mode. What I want to be able to do is launch the game, have it go right into screensaver mode, and walk away and just have it do its thing. It would also be really handy to have a launch script that would make the game launch in full screen mode every time as well, because currently, as it is right now, the game relaunches in whatever mode you left it in. So as far as I know, if you are in true full screen mode, borderless full screen mode, and you want it to relaunch the same exact way, your best bet is to just hit Alt F4. That'll close the executable. Then when you relaunch it, it's going to launch in the same state that it was in last. And I found it's just a little config file. So I bet honestly, I could probably script that to change the config file right before launch to be full screen, but the ability to do that natively within the game would be much better. The Gnorp Apologue will definitely run on the Steam Deck, but there's really absolutely no point to playing it on the Steam Deck. It just would not be fun for anybody, or maybe it would, but it's not something that if I'm going to be on my Steam Deck, I want to be playing something. This is definitely something that you're going to have passively running on the side or even minimized while you play something else, and you just kind of check back into it from time to time. It's not something that's engaging enough to be on the Steam Deck. Granted, it will run. It takes up almost no space. I'm sure the performance would be fine. It's just not something I'm going to put on my Steam Deck. Overall, I think the game is worth $7 just for what it is. There's a lot of things that have been put into the game. There's a lot of things that made me chuckle. It is not something that you're going to want to sit at for hours, but it is a cool game if you liked ant farms as a kid, I guess. So if you're a super nerd like me, you'll probably like it. If you liked ant farms as a kid, you'll also probably like it. This is also one for the people who liked aquariums. I mean, I'm kind of all of those things. I liked ant farms, aquariums, and I'm a super nerd. So, like, I don't know. I like this one. It's worth the $7. Check it out. I would also really appreciate it if you gave me a thumbs up if you thought the video was okay. And else, consider subscribing. And that's all I've got for you. Pretty simple game. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.